Welcome on in to the Health Elevated podcast. Today we have a guest who's very special and should sound familiar to you because it's his second time appearing on the program, a guest I'm very excited to have. It's Dr. Viet Le. How's it going?
I'm well, thank you. Sorry, I didn't want to talk over you, but I appreciate it. I'm honored to come back and talk more about a subject that is gaining even more ground, both scientifically, clinically, and in popularity since we last talked.
And that subject, of course, is the hot topic of these drugs like Ozempic that are being used for weight loss. So last time, kind of what we talked about was the history of kind of obesity in the United States, the problems of obesity, and we talked about semaglutides as this potential, even a potential solution to this obesity epidemic that we're seeing. We kind of defined them, and I'm not an expert in this, but if I were to summarize kind of what they are for myself and for the audience here, it'd be that these semiglutides are kind of, I think they call it an agonist. So it's kind of like a fake, like something that's pretending to be a hormone that mimics GLP-1. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And just for clarification for folks, when we talk about the weight loss, FDA drug label, it will be Wegovy, and Ozempic is the diabetic. But yeah, semaglutide is
clarification.
Yeah. And semaglutide is of course one of the GLP-1 receptor agonists. And yeah, exactly. They as an agonist, it opens up that receptor and keeps it open. Yeah, these are actually modified GLP-1. So basically your own hormone, but modified so that it lasts a lot longer for sure than what the usual time frame of a GLP-1 when your body makes it. So,
and practically speaking, if someone's taking these semaglutides, really what they're experiencing is essentially a decrease in appetite that results in them eating less, which results in weight loss. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah. I think the most simplest way to think about it is that exactly. And again, semaglutide is one of the GLP-1s, but the GLP-1s themselves, these receptor agonists, that's exactly the most simplest way to think about them is they turn on our satiety, right? Make us less hungry. And then the second part is to slow down the gut so that, things kind of sit in transit there. It says, please do not enter any more cars on the road. We are congested.
Okay. So last time we talked, I kind of mentioned to you this to you right before we started recording here was you said some things that just echoed in my mind in a good way, because you kind of like changed my perspective on the whole conversation about obesity. And I keep thinking about it. So now I get a chance to follow up with you and mention, wow, like this is kind of just mind blowing to me in a way that's kind of made me just change, again, my perspective on health and epidemiology. So what you said in summary, and maybe I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate it as well as you did in the episode. And for those of you listening, go check out our first episode we did with Dr. Viet Le, because he gets into some great stuff in that one. But basically what you said is, epidemiologically speaking, a BMI over 30 means you're already sick.
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly right. And since we've spoken, we now have several different large society organizations, even the WHO, right? The World Health Organization has come out with a statement, a scientific statement on obesity as a chronic disease. So BMI itself at 30, which is, it's kind of arbitrary to use any type of number like that. It's what we choose as a medical, community to define a BMI of 30 as class 1 obesity. And so by itself, it's a disease. Yes, you are already ill, so to speak. It would be like carrying the diagnosis of diabetes without yet having neuropathy, retinopathy, needing amputations. It's a disease already. Yeah, you are already ill when you have a BMI of 30.
Yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, we need to stop acting like obesity is something we need to fix in order to prevent disease. Like, we need to start thinking of it as they already have disease. And I think part of the reasons of what you were saying is like the probabilities, if you will, of all sorts of diseases are so high, like epidemiologically speaking, which is the key word there. It's as if you already have them. Like, it's not like a matter of like, oh, you might end up with this. It's basically you have the precursor to that, or you already have it. And that's just
Isn't that mind-blowing?
so
It's kind of
it
mind-blowing to
is
think about.
mind-blowing.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and I would just like to remind folks, this is not, obesity itself, for those that have a BMI of 30. In fact, I did at the time of our conversation. um, I had crested a BMI of 30, and, let me just contextualize that. As someone that's Vietnamese, I'm of, Asian descent. The BMI is actually lower to classify obesity. It's 27. So I was 3 points over what would be obese in an individual who is an Asian. And, it's not a moral failing, folks. This happens to be environmental. It happens to be multifactorial. We are in an era of a lot of yummy things, and there's very few pickings that are on the shelves at our grocery stores that are not calorically dense. So it's very difficult. Yeah, we're up against it, and of course our society is a little bit more sedentary by design, by design and convenience. So it's not a moral failure. We unfortunately we have to quote fix this, and part of that is a pharmacologic intervention for sure. Yep.
Yeah, and can I just say, one of the fun things that I experienced when talking to you yet is I can just tell you're one of these really good doctors that sincerely cares about the people that you're caring for, your patients, and you can just feel your sincerity when you're talking about this stuff. You're a man of the people, if you will. And I really appreciate that. And I think that gives you almost more credibility when talking about this stuff because you're not just thinking about numbers and data per se, but you're using that in context of people's everyday lives. And, you're actually thinking about keeping people healthy in the long term. So credit where credit is due. Dr. Viet Lee, you're a good one. But one thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about is this culture. So, my background is more in the data, more callous and cold, I suppose. No, I'm just kidding. In studying healthy behaviors and how the mechanisms behind sticking to healthy behaviors in the long term, which are extremely difficult. And when you have something as complicated as diet, which is mostly where obesity comes from, right? Like exercise plays a very small role, but obviously still important, but diet, right? We talked a little bit about this last time where the environment is just so prone to get people to eat more than what their body requires to function that we're kind of increasing in size. And that's impacting everything from our health, obviously, the cost of healthcare, but also the culture. And one thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about was there's this recent show on Netflix talking about did you remember it was like 10, 15 years ago, the show The Biggest Loser?
Oh yes, yes, very popular.
Very popular, hugely popular. I was a big fan of the show. And, for it has some flaws with it, obviously, like when you're trying to motivate people to lose weight for money, they'll lose weight in often unhealthy ways. And one of the lessons learned is that most everyone on that show ended up gaining the weight back because, when you get rid of the money motivation and you're not in this isolated area with like only healthy foods around you, then you get back to the environment you're originally in, you tend to gain the weight back. And it's a pretty fascinating piece of cultural history in the United States because of as what we just said. This was the number one show for a while. And you had, Michelle Obama doing her stuff with like childhood obesity during that time. you had a lot of talk of obesity. But now, I don't know what's changed, but it's obviously different than it was when The Biggest Loser came out. I mean, this Netflix documentary is just like smack talking The Biggest Loser the entire time, which, there's some reasons to. But it's also kind of, I think, a reflection of a change in our culture where I almost wonder if like there's a moment where we kind of gave up on trying to fight obesity as a culture. But now maybe with the introduction of these GLP-1 inhibitors, if I'm using that vocabulary correctly, that maybe it's going to be another cultural shift that changes our perception of obesity in the United States. But I know I've said a lot, so I need to get all your thoughts and expertise on this. Yeah, but I want to hear it.
Yeah. So first let me address The Biggest Loser, because I think what a microcosm of the struggle someone with obesity has. So let me explain that. You took a whole bunch of individuals, and money aside, fame aside, or whatever, they said, yeah, I'll sign on and do this thing. And I actually believe that they had a motivation, like, maybe, well, this is my accountability. I am on, like, they're filming me, I'm with a group of people, and we're going to do this. Because I will tell you, if you go back and look at the backstory of all of the, because they do a backstory in everyone, it wasn't the first time that these individuals had tried to do this. So I think that's the first thing that we have to recognize, is that, and I said this in the first podcast, is there's no way that a 40-year-old, this is the first time that I've heard eat less, move more. It's just not. And those individuals that went on The Biggest Loser, that was not the first time. It's like, oh yeah, I just kind of grew up this way. This is, what's that? You said eat less, move more. So what they had was very, very tyrannical, so to speak, and maybe that's why this new show kind of dishes on Biggest Loser a little bit. But you have someone that's really just writing you and saying, no, you have to eat this way. And I mean, it was severe caloric deficit. And as you watch, I mean, yes, it's physical activity, it's exercise, but it was a little bit of torture too. I mean, emotionally, what a beatdown. And they were able to see such substantial weight loss. And one of the things that's so difficult as you watch this, that weight loss was excessive in the beginning, and then it just kind of like started to have that curve where it plateaus a little bit, and they had to work even harder to overcome it. You'll have to kind of remind ourselves of the timeline. I can't remember with from start to finish, if it was 90 days, if it was 180 days, because you just don't get that sense when you're watching these from episode to episode. But
Right. So real quick, I'll let you know, because I was a big fan of this.
oh
But
yeah, yeah.
now every episode is a week, and they weigh in every week, and it's usually like 3 months, and then they have like a 3-month break before the finale. So I think in total, from start to finish, it's about a 6-month period.
Okay. And then some did like regain in that 90 days, didn't they? As they
I mean, usually because they were going to be on TV for like the finale, most people lost at least some weight.
okay.
But like after the finale, because 6 months to lose, some people were over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
It's so fast. After the finale is where I think the gain of weight really starts to happen.
Which it is mirrored in the GLP-1 studies. When you remove the therapy, then folks regain weight. So what does that sound like? It's just as an off-topic and tangential, not off-topic, but tangential here. Diabetes, we never expect to treat someone and then say, okay, you're good, we'll stop the meds. What happens? Well, diabetes, because they have it,
Right.
the A1C worsens, the glucose worsens. Hypertension or high blood pressure, same thing. You remove the blood pressure medication, guess what happens? Blood pressure increases. So what that is not moral failure. It's you have a disease that's chronic, and yes, it returns. So, remember, this is very intensive, right? I just said severe caloric deficits. almost torture-like physical activities. Sometimes I was like, "Oh my gosh, please back off. You're really gonna hurt someone." And, no one you don't have time. I don't have time to do 8 hours of workouts, every day to lose 200 pounds and then sustain that. And
Time or energy.
or energy. Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. Time or energy, because we have other things we have to do. But yeah, so of course they're gonna gain weight again once that intensive time is done. So the microcosm here is that's us. That's us. We don't get as intensive as we do our lifestyle changes. Um, but you know, when you do get a little bit more intensive and kind of think through this, it's huge. It's a different change behaviorally, and it's hard to sustain unless you have, like here, they had a whole group of other people going through the process, and then they knew they were being watched, so there's accountability. So it's hard to do it on your own, and then once you stop that intensive therapy, whether it's lifestyle or therapeutics, pharmacologic therapeutics, well, the weight comes back. Again, it's chronic disease. And I think here, the biggest loser was certainly a time where uh, TV made money off of something that's always been an issue and that we've always been interested in. I don't know that we lost the moment, Rylan, because if you just did a quick Google search on weight loss, you would find anyone and everyone, whether it's, YouTube, TikTok, etc. There's influencers that are like promoting their thing. There's the supplements that are out there that are promoting their thing. Um, and then, we're in it kind of blends because now we have compounding, but that comes back to GLP-1s. I think that the moment has always been there, but we knew that you couldn't go to the quote fat farm. You couldn't go to the Biggest Loser farm and lose weight and that sustain it. If anything, it just taught us that's not how physiology works. Our bodies fight against that, and that the disease is actually chronic. So that's where we come into an era now. So fast forwarding to your question, are we back in a better place with GLP-1 therapies? And by the way, that's just one incretin. Now, we'll go ahead and use the brand name Zepbound and its diabetic component Mounjaro. These are weight loss, but it's a dual incretin instead of semaglutide. It's tirzepatide as the GLP-1 receptor agonist, but it also has GIP, right? Glucagon insulinogenic peptide. And so that's a dual incretin. And by the way, the same company has now a triple incretin. And we've gone from 14% weight loss to 20% weight loss to almost 30% weight loss with these different therapies. And same thing applies, though. You use it, and if you stop the therapy, your weight gains. It comes back. And so I think we're in an era where we have those supportive therapies, but they're not the end all be all. In fact, there are side effects that we'll talk about. Muscle loss, bone loss. Some of that comes with weight loss in general, whether it's through lifestyle or these therapeutic options. But there's an amplification. There's a true pathophysiology where you do have some muscle loss with GLP-1s. So we have to be aware of that. But one of the things that I alluded to in our first podcast was the food industry is starting to respond to this. They're offering less in terms of portions. They have looked back at their menus and started to scale back. The restaurants are feeling the pinch, if you will, as more and more people are on GLP-1s, compounded or otherwise, and they're seeing less in their pocketbooks because guess what? When you're on a GLP-1, you're less hungry. When you go to a restaurant, you're eating less. You might be sharing a meal rather than purchasing your own meal. And so it's finally reflecting back on the environment that's caused the problem in the first place. So we'll see. We'll see.
I'm fine with people selling me less Oreos per package as long as they're not charging me the same.
They're right. I agree.
Yeah. No, that's funny. Okay, so is that one of the areas in the kind of in the latest of research that you're seeing that like there's starting to be an economic impact on the food industry? Like there's been papers written on this?
Yeah, so, and I'm trying to remember now, and in JAMA, yeah, there was well, first of all, and I alluded to this as well, you know, throughout the time frame from about 1994, we've always had this slight increase uptick in weight across the country. And that's, it's really not a mystery. You can see the changes in the food industry at the time and some regulatory things that changed as well, this low fat thing. And then suddenly people are doing more sugars. And then they say, oh, no, it has less sugars and they add more fat into it. So the food itself has changed. But, you saw this counter of percent of people being overweight and then obese in the US going forward in time. And even from 2000 to 2015, it was so scary. And JAMA had published last year, just before we had our first podcast, it finally plateaued. And you know what happened? GLP-1s were compounded, and there was access to a therapy that is effective. And so, yeah, we actually had a plateau in the numbers of people who were becoming more obese, and it was starting to go down the other side. I'm not sure where we are since there have been a couple of FDA rulings on compounded therapies, but now, they're still around as long as they're mixed, usually with like glycine or something like that. They can't just be semaglutide or tirzepatide. So they're still accessible, but now you're hearing the cost come down on direct to consumer, Wegovy and Zepbound. It's not pocket change at $449, but certainly not the same as the retail price of $1,500. So a little bit more accessible, but certainly some disparities still in those that cannot afford it.
Right, for sure. So I had seen some of this research about people gaining the weight back. I mean, that's kind of the hot headlines because anyone who's at least even a little skeptical reads that and thinks, well, I don't want to be on it forever, so I'm not going to go on it. And I I can understand that line of thinking, but I think the way you present it makes a lot more sense, and I think it's can be very helpful to people. However, I gotta say, as someone who I guess really cares about healthy habit formation, there's still a part of me that thinks, I can see, like, it's not surprising that people would rebound based on all the stuff we talked about, the environment, the habits that have already been formed. But I still hold on to this hope that some people can be the exception to the rule, go on their GLP-1 or whatever mixture we partner up, Wegovy's,
Yeah.
and as they're losing weight, begin to form healthy habits that help them maybe, I'm just kind of trying to be super optimistic here, get off of it and stay off of it because now they've completely changed lifestyle in such a way that they can maintain it. Is that too, like, crazy to think about, like, in practice? Am I just, like, daydreaming here? And do you think that's a possibility that, like, maybe some people can be an exception to that rule of weight gain once you go off of them?
Yeah, no, no, no. I think first, I, I I would say that um, GLP-1 should not be prescribed as the lone thing. It should be on the background of lifestyle. And for those individuals who listening to this podcast or clinicians who are thinking of prescribing this, just again remember it's not the first time you've heard eat less, move more. So, but because, Rylan, you know this. If you've started a project and you meet failure a lot, it's hard to keep up with. Even if you know it's the right thing to do, it's hard to keep up with it. And so,
Yeah.
Yes, then it's this reinvigoration of, okay, we have this thing that will support your lifestyle efforts, not supplant your lifestyle efforts. Because why are you doing this? Why are you losing weight? Well, to feel better. How do you feel better? You put the right fuels in your body and you become more active. That's what quality of life is. And so they're not one or the other. It should not supplant lifestyle. Lifestyle should, if anything, it's a way to restart efforts into lifestyle. And they may, by the way, this presupposes that they're not even doing the things anyways. And when we say, well, one or the other, they may still be doing all the things, but again, pathophysiology and environment. So now you get, yeah. So now you get to support them in those efforts. And when you look at the GLP-1, discontinuance or withdrawal and see what happens, it's not 100% of the participants that gain 100% of their weight back. So you just have to remember that. So you're right. You're not wrong in thinking there are folks that will maintain weight loss because yeah, this was the priming of the pump that allowed them to do it now without the GLP-1 on board. But when you look at this and you say, well, nearly 80% of those who discontinued the GLP-1s regained at least 25% of their lost weight within a year. So not 100%, but a good portion gained back 25% of that weight. So let's just say me, right? If I was 170 pounds and I lose 30 pounds, so now I'm down to 140 and I gain 25% of that weight back, that's like saying, oh, I gained 9 pounds back, but I lost 30 pounds. You know what I mean? So it's not like that's a lot. It's not a failure, but it does tell you that a portion of that may just be GLP-1. And most of these individuals, when we did the studies, it wasn't just, well, the placebo group only got lifestyle and placebo, but the drug group only got drug without lifestyle. They all were informed about lifestyle. They were all, each time that they came in on their study visits, they were reminded, yep, these are the things that please continue to do those things, etc. See your nutritionist. And then they were given the drug or placebo on top of that. And so it's not one or the other. It's always with lifestyle that you're using GLP-1 therapies. And I would say it's the same with high blood pressure medications and diabetes medications. If their patients are more successful at losing weight and having lifestyle implementation, often it's not doing away with the medication entirely, but guess what they can do? They can down titrate their doses or maybe get rid of one or two of the medications. So I think that that's the important thing here is, 15 milligrams might be the max dose of Zepbound, of tirzepatide. And when people lose the weight and they start, it's kind of like this, you kind of see these graphs where one thing goes up and the other thing starts going down. Well, as weight goes down, the lifestyle implementation goes up and up and up, and they're more active and more active. They're able to do more things with their foods, etc. And then the dosing can drop off. So I do have patients who may max out. And then they're like, I'd like to just be on a maintenance dose. Does it have to be the maximum? I said, no, you don't have to stay on the maximum. Let's just see as we titrate down what's reasonable. Some get down halfway. Some get down to the starting dose of 2.5 and they're fine, you know? So I think it's never really black and white when we talk about any of these things. But in medications across the chronic disease states, they're dosed differently, and you should reduce dosing. If I have someone that has high blood pressure and they start passing out, falling over, being lightheaded, probably we're overdosing them on the blood pressure medications. So I let patients dose to whatever the blood pressure goal is without causing side effects. of that medication. And that's the same with these weight medications, is that you should be able to reduce dose and titrate and maybe even find a maintenance dose. Or if they want to try some time going off of it, they can do that. And I've had some patients go off successfully.
Wow. Okay. See, this is awesome. I love this stuff. Your comparisons with these other diseases are just so eye-opening to me because it just puts it in a beautiful context that's easy to understand. And I desire for people out there who are really putting in these efforts of exercise and diet. I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to see results, and if this is able to help them see that, then it can become so much easier to even form habits when you're seeing the benefit of exercise, when you see the benefit of eating a certain way, and that can be gained through these drugs. So I think it's like going to benefit people as far as their behaviors go as well. Or even if they're already doing those behaviors, to see an actual payoff can be, I'm guessing, very rewarding.
Absolutely. Yes. That, especially what you just said. It could be it's a positive feedback loop to continue doing the right things. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so just to end here, Viet, so I mean, that's one of the biggest things I've heard is people who are maybe considering using these drugs to get healthier with their doctor and, that are exercising and whatnot, is this kind of fear about, well, like, how does it mean for me in the long term if I'm going to be like maybe stuck on this? I think there's still like this cultural thing that you've been hitting on a lot, which is this idea that people have failed because they have to get medication for something. And so I want to give you the final words to kind of just talk to that type of person who might be BMI over 30, is considering getting with their doctor to discuss these kind of things, but might be a little bit nervous about the thoughts that they're a failure, or be nervous that they're going to be stuck on this drug for the rest of their lives, and so on. So what would you say to a person like that?
Yeah. That's such a great final kind of question and scenario. And I would say this. In particular, we're hyper focused right now on weight. And I would say that the number itself, whatever that weight is, that BMI, etc., is kind of the wrong focus. It's the way to understand that you do have disease, but what does it lead to ultimately? Individuals who have a higher BMI, they have more cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, death from a cardiovascular event, liver disease. This so-called fatty liver disease, or MASH, MASLD. They have increase in dementia risk. They have more joint pain. They have more autoimmune flares. Those are the things that, if we're just talking about GLP-1 class of drugs, those are all the things since the last time we talked about now are indications for using this. So from a clinical standpoint, I look at this as life-saving and improving quality of life through multiple systems and multiple organs. And I always tell my patients, I'm glad that you get the side effect of losing weight. But for me, it's so important that we protect your heart, your kidney, your brain, your joints, and your quality of life. And so if you need to be on this lifelong, don't think of it for lifelong for weight. That's the nice side effect you get. But think about it from a quality of life and long life without chronic diseases, those others that are associated with obesity. So think about this. Think about this as, you know, do I feel comfortable in my skin? Literally, do I feel comfortable in my skin? Do I feel like I have a high quality of life? And what will that look like going forward if I'm on a GLP-1? And am I consigned to this medication? No, you're not consigned to it. Everyone responds a little bit differently to them. And at some point, you may be able to stop a GLP-1. And as I said, yes, 82% regain some weight and 25% of that weight. So if you did have a successful loss of 40 to 50 pounds, a 25% regain is a much better place than you were before the GLP-1s. And so use it to augment what you're already doing, find success. And if you find yourself off of them, great. And if you find yourself on a lower dose for a longer period of time, that's fine too, as long as your quality of life is better.
Wow, I love that. When you said that the weight loss is just a positive side effect, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
That's the way to think about this stuff. So, everyone, thank you for listening. Give us a thumbs up, 5-star review if you're willing, and any comments that you have, please let us know. And go ahead and click the subscribe or follow button so you can keep up to date with great experts such as Dr. Viet Lee. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.